There's this moment most people have, usually late at night, when the world is quiet and the masks are off, and the thought comes, what's wrong with me? Maybe it's because you can't connect with people the way they seem to connect with each other. Maybe it's because you feel things too deeply, or not deeply enough. Maybe it's because your mind works differently, moves differently, sees differently. Whatever it is, the conclusion is the same. Something is broken. Something needs fixing. And once you believe that, everything becomes evidence. Every awkward conversation, every time you don't fit, every moment you feel like an outsider, looking in, all of it confirms the diagnosis. You are fundamentally flawed. But here's what nobody tells you. That diagnosis, it's not real. It was never real. You're not broken. You're just being measured against the wrong standard. Think about it like this. Imagine a bird that's been told its whole life it should be good at swimming. It watches the fish glide through water effortlessly. And it tries, it really tries. But it keeps struggling, keeps failing, keeps almost drowning. And everyone around it says, what's wrong with you? Why can't you swim like everyone else? You must be defective. The bird believes it, spends years thinking something is fundamentally wrong with its design. Never once does anyone say, wait, you're a bird. You're not supposed to swim. You're supposed to fly. That's what's happening to most people. They're being judged by standards that have nothing to do with how they're actually built. They're being told to swim when they were designed to fly. And when they can't, when they struggle, they think they're broken. But the bird isn't broken. The bird is just misunderstood. You are just misunderstood. See, here's how it works. From the moment you're born, the world around you has a template, a set of expectations about how people should be, how they should act, what they should want, how they should feel. And that template, it was created by people who came before, people who had their own limitations, their own fears, their own narrow view of what's acceptable. And when you don't match that template, when your natural way of being doesn't fit the mould, the world doesn't say, oh, interesting, this person works differently. The world says this person is wrong, this person needs to change, this person is broken. So you spend your life trying to fit, trying to be more like the template, less sensitive, more social, less intense, more normal, whatever normal means. And the more you try, the more exhausted you become, because you're fighting your own nature. You're trying to be something you're not. And here's the cruel part. Even when you manage to fake it, when you successfully pretend to be what they expect, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels hollow, because deep down, you know you're hiding. You know the real you is locked away somewhere, and the person everyone sees is just a performance. That's the cost of believing you're broken. You spend your entire life in hiding, not because there's actually something wrong with you, but because you've been convinced there is. But what if there isn't? What if every single thing you thought was wrong with you is actually just a feature that's been misinterpreted? Let's take sensitivity. The world tells sensitive people they're too much, too emotional, too affected by things, can't handle reality, need to toughen up. And sensitive people believe it. They think their sensitivity is a weakness, a flaw, something to overcome. But sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's a different way of processing reality. It's like having more receptors, more antennas, picking up signals that others miss. Sensitive people feel the undercurrents. They sense what's not being said. They pick up on energy, emotion, truth that's hiding beneath the surface. In a world that valued depth over speed, sensitivity over surface, that would be seen as a gift, a superpower. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world that moves fast, stays shallow, and rewards people who don't feel too much. So sensitivity gets labelled as broken. Same with intensity. Intense people are told to calm down, to be less, to dim their light, because their intensity makes others uncomfortable. It's too much, too passionate, too alive. And intense people learn to apologise for their fire. They learn to make themselves smaller. But intensity isn't a problem. It's energy. It's life force. It's the thing that creates, that transforms, that refuses to settle for mediocre. The world needs intense people. It just doesn't know how to handle them. Or take people who need solitude. The world calls them antisocial, weird, lonely. Something must be wrong if they don't crave constant connection. But needing solitude isn't broken. It's how some people recharge, how they process, how they connect with themselves. Extroversion isn't superior to introversion. It's just louder. Every single trait you've been told is wrong with you. It's not wrong. It's just different. And different has been labelled as defective because the people making the labels don't understand it. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. Here's what actually happens when you're different. The world looks at you and doesn't have a category. You don't fit the boxes. You don't follow the script. And rather than expand the boxes, rather than question the script, the world decides the problem is you. You're too quiet, too loud, too emotional, too detached, too much, not enough, always something, always wrong. And you internalize it. You believe the world's assessment is accurate. You believe the problem is your design. But the problem was never your design. The problem is that you're being read in the wrong language. Imagine this. You're a book written in French. Beautiful, complex, meaningful. But everyone around you only reads English. They open you up, see the words and say, "This doesn't make sense. This is gibberish. This book is broken." The book isn't broken. The readers just don't speak the language. That's what's happening. You're not broken. You're just written in a language most people don't understand. And instead of learning your language, they've decided you're the problem. Every person has their own internal language, their own way of processing the world, expressing themselves, connecting with reality. For some people, that language is straightforward, simple, direct. It matches the dominant language of the culture. So they move through life easily understood. But for others, the language is different, more nuanced, more layered, operates on different principles. And when the world encounters that language and doesn't understand it, it labels it as dysfunction. You know what you are? You're that person who thinks in poetry being told to speak in bullet points. You're the one who processes through feeling being told to be logical. You're the one who sees connections being told to stay focused. You're the one who needs depth being told to keep it light. None of that is broken. It's just a different operating language. And the tragedy is that you've spent your whole life thinking you need to translate yourself, that you need to become fluent in their language and abandon your own. But here's the thing about translation. Something always gets lost. The essence, the truth, the core of what you're actually trying to express. When you force yourself to communicate in a language that isn't yours, you lose yourself in the process. And that loss, that's what you've been calling depression, anxiety, emptiness, disconnection. It's not a chemical imbalance. It's not a character flaw. It's what happens when you abandon your native language and try to live entirely in translation. Think about how exhausting that is. Every interaction is a translation. Every expression is filtered. Every genuine impulse has to be converted into something acceptable. By the end of the day, you're not tired from living. You're tired from translating. Most people don't realise they're doing this. They've been translating for so long, they've forgotten they even have a native language. They've forgotten what it feels like to express themselves directly, without filtering, without converting everything into what others can handle. And the world reinforces this. The world rewards good translators, people who can take their complex, deep, different nature and package it into something palatable, something that doesn't make others uncomfortable, something that fits. But here's what the world doesn't tell you. The people who change things, who create things, who matter, they're the ones who refused to translate. They're the ones who insisted on speaking their own language, even when nobody understood, even when they were called crazy, broken, too much, too different. Van Gogh painted in his own language. The art world said he was insane. Now his work is priceless. Einstein thought in his own language. People said he was slow, defective. Now we call him a genius. Every artist, inventor, visionary, whoever mattered, spoke in their own language first. And they were all misunderstood, all called broken, all proved right, eventually. You're not broken. You're just speaking a language that hasn't been widely learned yet. And the question isn't how to fix yourself. The question is, do you have the courage to stop translating? Because here's what happens when you stop. When you start expressing in your native language, without apology, without conversion, some people won't understand. They'll still think something is wrong with you. They'll still try to fix you, change you, normalize you. But others will finally see you. They'll recognize the language because it's theirs too. They've just been translating this whole time. Same as you. And when they hear you speaking freely, authentically, in the language you were born with, it gives them permission to do the same. That's how movements start. That's how culture shifts. One person stops translating, starts speaking their truth in their own language. And suddenly, others realise they're not alone. They're not broken. They were just surrounded by people who didn't speak their language. Your weirdness, that's your native language, showing through the translation. Your sensitivity, that's fluency in emotional truth. Your intensity, that's passion that refuses to be diluted. Your need for solitude, that's introversion as a complete language, not a deficit of extroversion. Everything you've pathologized about yourself is actually you trying to break through the translation, trying to be authentic, trying to speak in the language you were born with. And every time you shut that down, every time you force yourself back into translation, you betray yourself a little more. So, what now? You've spent years, maybe decades, believing you're broken. That story is deep, it's in your bones. You can't just think it away, but you can rewrite it, not by pretending, not by affirmations that don't feel true, but by looking at your history through a different lens, by taking every piece of evidence you used to prove you were broken and reinterpreting it. That time you couldn't connect at the party, not because you're socially defective, because you speak depth in a room full of small talk. That's a language mismatch, not a personality flaw. That time you felt too much and cried when no one else did. Not because you're overly emotional, because you're tuned to frequencies others don't notice. That's perception, not pathology. That time you needed to be alone when everyone else wanted company, not because something is wrong with your wiring, because solitude is how you recharge, and presence with yourself is as valuable as presence with others. Every single moment you pointed to as proof of your brokenness, it has another explanation. An explanation where you're not defective, you're just different. And different is not less than. This isn't about positive thinking. This isn't about convincing yourself you're perfect when you don't believe it. This is about accuracy, about seeing yourself correctly. For the first time, you were never broken. You were measured against the wrong standards. Standards that don't apply to how you're built. And when you stop measuring yourself that way, when you stop using their ruler to assess your value, everything changes. You start to see that the things you hated about yourself are actually your most interesting features. The things that make you, you. The things that, in the right context, with the right people, are not just acceptable, but valuable. Your sensitivity becomes your strength. Your intensity becomes your fuel. Your need for solitude becomes your source. Your complexity becomes your richness. None of it was ever a problem. It was just misunderstood. And here's the shift. When you stop believing you're broken, you stop trying to fix yourself. You stop spending all your energy on self-improvement plans that are really just self-rejection plans. You stop trying to become someone else and start becoming more of who you already are. That's when life gets interesting. Because you're no longer performing. You're no longer hiding. You're no longer translating every impulse into something acceptable. You're just being, fully, authentically, in your own language. And yes, some people still won't understand. They'll still think something is off about you. That's okay. They're reading you in the wrong language. That's their limitation, not yours. But the people who matter, they'll get it. They'll see you clearly. And more importantly, you'll see yourself clearly. Not as a project that needs fixing, but as a being that needs understanding. And once you understand yourself, once you see yourself accurately, the shame dissolves. Because shame only exists in misunderstanding. Shame is what happens when you believe the world's assessment of you. When you think their confusion about you is proof that something is wrong with you. But when you realise they're just confused, that they're misreading you, the shame has nowhere to live. You're not broken. You never were. You were just surrounded by people who didn't understand your language, who couldn't see your design, who mistook different for defective. And the moment you stop agreeing with them, the moment you stop accepting their verdict, everything shifts. Not because you change, but because you finally see what was always true. You were always whole, always complete, always exactly what you needed to be. The only thing that was broken was the story you believed about yourself. And that story you can rewrite it. Right now, today, this moment, you're not broken. You're just misunderstood. And the person who needs to understand you first is you. If this video changed something in you, write in the comments, "I understand myself now." Write it as your declaration of seeing yourself clearly. Nobody